Okay, in today's example in editing, I'm going to be editing some astrophotography. And believe it or not, this is my starting image. It doesn't look like much, but I was out photographing the Milky Way in Buena Vista, Colorado with my 20 mil 1.4. And even though that's a super wide, super fast lens, doesn't look like much right off the bat, right? So let's go ahead and modify it. Let's get this thing looking good. So I'm in Adobe Bridge, which is my file viewing program. I'm on my photo, and just quick sneak peek, I'll show you what it's going to ultimately look like. It's going to look like that in the end. And yeah, that's quite a stark difference. So first of all, this is our starting image, unprocessed, untouched, in RAW. I'm now opening camera raw, and yeah, looks about the same. It's the same photo. And yeah, let's see what we're looking at. So I shot it at ISO 400, which is the superpower of this f1.4 lens. Is there's a lot of data, there's a lot of clarity in this, so I can edit it a lot. Having that super low ISO is fantastic. So as with a lot of things, I'm frankly going to start off with auto just to get some instant gratification, just to see what happens. Okay, so auto does that. Still not that much. I'm not going to use auto with this because it wasn't enough as a one-stop shop. I still have to do stuff with it. So I kind of know from doing astrophotography and editing with astro that one of the first things I want to do is up my exposure overall just a little bit. I shot it a little bit too dark probably, but I'm just going to boost everything. But notice how the glow in the horizon, the glow in those mountains actually starts to get pretty pronounced, and the Milky Way doesn't do a whole lot. The stars don't do a whole lot. So I'm actually not going to do much. I'm just going to kind of arbitrarily go with 1/3 of a stop here, so 0.35. But I do know from experience that whites is going to make a huge difference. So I'm going to boost the whites, and notice how that actually helps the stars pop out without letting this moon glow. This actual haze over the mountains is the moon having just set maybe 15 minutes prior. But that does a lot for the stars. Now, the thing with astrophotography is it's kind of surreal in the first place. So I can use some pretty aggressive editing, like dehaze and clarity, which I tend to go pretty light on with general landscapes and wildlife and nature shots. But with astro, we're getting a pretty otherworldly look anyway. So doing some heavy editing is going to make this big, bodacious, and pronounced. So I'm going to go ahead and dehaze a lot. And notice how this is bringing out a lot of the definition and clarity. And while I would normally never go to +70 with dehaze, it doesn't make it look fake. It just makes it look more pronounced. Now, knowing what I've got to work with, I'm going to go back to my exposure, increase a little bit. Oh, that's starting to look pretty darn good. But notice how, again, the horizon gets way more treatment than everything else. So I don't really want to do much more because I don't actually want the horizon to get that light look. I want the Milky Way, this band. So I'm actually going to go into a radial filter by hitting J. I'm going to make this ellipsis, this oval, and I'm going to place it over the Milky Way, but then I'm going to come down here and then angle it a little bit. Well, I have to move it up and then angle it a little bit so it just covers the Milky Way. And I don't want much of the mountain there. And so I'm now going to start treating the Milky Way, make it a little bit wider. I've got the feathering. I actually might feather it even more so it looks a little bit more real, and make it a little bit wider. And then go back to the whites. Then, oh, yeah, that's starting to pop out there. I might do a little bit more exposure, a little bit more there. That's nice. And then I might come down to clarity, and that's okay. I'm going to do a little bit, do more dehaze. That's okay. I'll just do a little bit there. And then, yeah, so that's probably as much light as I'm going to get from this. Now I'm going to come into color. So once again, I rarely use saturation heavily with my photography, but with astro, it's something else. But before I'm going to do that, I'm going to come over to white balance, and I generally like to make my astro pretty cool. So I'm going to come down this slider here because just as an example, like look what happens if I warm it up. Yeah, it's kind of cool, but the yellow is really not what I want. I want those kind of purples, magentas, and blues coming out. So I'm going to go the other way, but then I'm going to saturate it so that color really starts to pop. And I like that quite a bit. Notice how with the Milky Way itself, it's really, the rest of the scene is not getting the same treatment. So I might come back to my mask And I might honestly, you know what? This is part of the experimentation. I might just go ahead and delete it. So see how, well, I'm going to undo that because I actually do want that treatment. I'm just going to make it a little bit wider so it's not so focused on just the middle. That's okay. The fringes in my photo will not get that treatment, but that's just fine. So I'm going to hit E, go back to the main editing, and I'm actually going to go now down to my color grading. So I've got midtones, which are kind of like the middle colors here. My shadows is all the darkness, the black sky, and then my highlights, which is going to be really the light and the color from the scene in general. So I'm going to come over to my highlights, and I do want to match the photo to more like what I saw, and I'm going to just come down to the magentas a little bit and just see how this would be too much. That's obviously way too magenta, but somewhere in the middle looks pretty darn good. And again, all that's doing is just adding a little bit of coolness and a little bit of color into the already colorful Milky Way. The thing with our eyes is we're seeing color quite differently than cameras, so we have to, go into this with a real artistic viewpoint and look. So that's probably all I'm going to do there, but I might come down to shadows and do the same. Ooh, now see how the whole night sky is getting that nice purple effect, that cool blue night sky. I'm just going to dial back a little bit, and yeah, I like that a lot. I might come down to saturation, just dial it down a little bit so it's not quite as pronounced. And then I'm going to even go down to a cooler color temperature. And again, remember that cool look is quite conducive to night skies. So that's about my sweet spot there. I'm going to come back over to my whites and boost that quite a bit more. Ooh, look how quickly that just gets gnarly. So yeah, oh, I like that. If I were to go all the extreme, yeah, botched. Too much, too much, too much, too much, too much, too much. Getting pretty good. So 57 is kind of my top. Now what I'll probably do is come over, highlight that 57, and use my down arrow just to gradually just touch it ever so slightly. So yeah, 57, 58, I like that strong look. Now that I know exposure did so much, the whites did so much, I might come up to exposure and just touch this, just crank it a little bit. And that's pretty darn cool. And not cool in a temperature, but cool in like the overall effect. I might do this small treatment to the white balance and just bring a little bit more warmth there. And ooh, I'm liking how this looks. Now, another thing with Astro is I'm really trying to focus the attention on the Milky Way. So I would even come into my vignette to darken the fringes, sort of making like a little bit of ovalness. See how the edges get dark? It helps fix the eyes on what I'm really trying to showcase, and I like that a lot. And gosh, I don't think I would do much more. I might play around more with saturation, just a tad, but you're gonna see how it gets pretty fake pretty quickly. Dial that down here. Vibrance is a smart saturation, so I might just bump this to see what happens. I'm getting a little bit more of the rich blues out of it, but not a lot. So we'll keep it there. And geez, I really, really like that a lot. Another thing I might mess around with in a global edit is clarity, just to get a little bit more definition of everything. It makes those stars more poppy and really more aesthetic. And then the last thing, just for giggles, and I'm probably gonna literally hit Command Z to undo this, but I'm just gonna go down in the blacks just to see what happens. Yeah, not really. Yeah, that's what I thought. So I'm just gonna go back to 0. And yeah, gosh, that's my shot. Let's see the before and after. That's before, that's after, and that's Milky Way astrophotography editing for you.